The Thief Story by Ruskin Bond is a story about a 15-year-old thief who changes his name every month to stay ahead of the police and old employers. And this time he kept his name Hari Singh. The other person in the story is a 25-year-old writer named Anil. And the thief meets Anil and asks him if he can work for him. Then the story unfolds on how the thief betrays Anil by committing a theft but retracts later on. I was still a thief when I met Anil, and though only 15, I was an experienced and fairly successful hand. Anil was watching a wrestling match when I approached him. He was about 25, a tall, lean fellow, and he looked easygoing, kind, and simple enough for my purpose. I hadn't had much luck of late and thought I might be able to get into the young man's confidence. You look a bit of a wrestler yourself, I said. A little flattery helps in making friends. So do you? He replied, which put me off for a moment because at that time I was rather thin. Well, I said modestly, I do wrestle a bit. What's your name? Hari Singh, I lied. I took a new name every month. That kept me ahead of the police and my former employers. After this introduction, Anil talked about the well-oiled wrestlers who were grunting, lifting, and throwing each other about. I didn't have much to say. Anil walked away. I followed casually. Hello again, he said. I gave him my most appealing smile. I want to work for you, I said, but I can't pay you. The story starts on the point where the two main characters of the story met, that is Anil and the thief. Okay, the two main characters are Anil and the thief. And the thief is the narrator of the story. And the thief says that according to him, he was pretty good at stealing. And Anil was watching a wrestling match when the thief approached him. And when we are seeing Anil, he is a very tall, lean, and an easygoing man of 25-year-old. And the thief had not committed any theft in the past few days as he did not get a chance. And he thought that Anil would be a good man to steal things from. So he thought about getting comfortable with him, and the thief commented on Anil that he looks like a wrestler himself. And he said that win to his confidence by flattering him. To this, Anil replied that even the thief looked like a wrestler, which offended him as a way he was very thin at that time. The thief modestly replied that he did wrestle a bit sometimes. And Anil asked his name, and the narrator, the thief, lied that his name was Hari Singh. So now the thief has got a new name, that is Hari Singh. The narrator used to change his name every month to escape the police and the ex-employers. Then they started talking about the well-oiled wrestlers whom they watched on the screen, and the narrator did not have much to say as he did not know much about wrestling. As Anil was leaving, the narrator again approached him, asking him that he wanted to work for him. And the narrator approached him with the most appealing smile that he could. And Anil told him that he won't be able to pay him for his work. I thought that over for a minute. Perhaps I had misjudged my man. I asked, can you feed me? Can you cook? I can cook. I lied again. If you can cook, then maybe I can feed you. He took me to his room over the Jumna sweet shop and told me I could sleep on the balcony. But the meal I cooked that night must have been terrible because Anil gave it to a stray dog and told me to be off. But I just hung around, smiling in my most appealing way, and he couldn't help laughing. Later, he patted me on the head and said never mind, he would teach me to cook. He also taught me to write my name and said he would soon teach me to write whole sentences and to add numbers. I was grateful. I knew that once I could write like an educated man, there would be no limit to what I could achieve. I was quite pleasant working for Anil. I made the tea in the morning and then would take my time buying the day's supplies, usually making a profit of about a rupee a day. I think he knew I made a little money this way, but he did not seem to mind. Here we can see that Harry had not expected this reply and thought to himself that he had misjudged Anil, as he had thought that Anil had a lot of money. Actually, Anil is a poor fellow. The narrator asked him if he could feed him, to which Anil instantly asked if Harry could cook. If Harry is able to cook, obviously I can feed you. Then what Harry did, Harry lied again and said yes. Then Anil replied that if Harry could cook, then he could feed him. And both of them went to Anil's room, which was about the Jumna sweet shop. There we can see Anil also told Harry that he could sleep in the balcony. The narrator said that the meal that he had cooked must have been terrible, as Anil has given that to a stray dog. Then he told Harry to go and sleep, but Harry decided to stay for a while. And Harry's smile was so appealing that Anil could not stop laughing looking at him. After some time, Anil patted on Harry's head and told him that he could teach him to cook. And he also told him how to write his name and told him that he would soon teach him to write sentences and add numbers. Harry was grateful for what Anil had planned, as he knew that there would be no limits to his work, that is theft, that once he know how to write. And Harry enjoyed working for Anil. And he used to make tea for him in the morning and then used to go to buy groceries for the day. And he would also keep 1 rupee in his pocket every day from the money that Anil used to give him for daily groceries. And Anil knew that he took a rupee every day, but he did not mind, and he was fine with it. Anil made money by fits and starts. He would borrow 1 week, lend the next. He kept worrying about his next check, but as soon as it arrived, he would go out and celebrate. It seems he wrote for magazines, a queer way to make a living. One evening he came home with a small bundle of notes, saying he had just sold a book to the publisher. At night I saw him tuck the money under the mattress. I had been working for Anil for almost a month, and apart from cheating on the shopping, had not done anything in my line of work. I had every opportunity for doing so. Anil had given me a key to the door, and I could come and go as I pleased. He was the most trusting person I had ever met. And that is why it was so difficult to rob him. It is easy to rob a greedy man because he can afford to be robbed. But it is difficult to rob a careless man. Sometimes he doesn't even notice he has been robbed, and that takes all the pleasure out of the work. Well, it's time I did some real work. I told myself, I'm out of practice. And if I don't take the money, he will only waste it on his friends. After all, he doesn't even pay me. Here we can see the actual life of Anil. Okay, Anil did not have any regular income, and he used to earn money by just doing different activities. And that is the meaning of fits and starts, not working on something properly. That is called fits and starts. So he used to earn money by doing different activities, and he did not have any fixed job. And the narrator says that Anil used to be worried about his paychecks all the time, but as soon as he would receive a check, what he will do? He would go out with his friends and celebrate. The narrator thinks that he used to write for magazines, and the narrator also thinks it to be a strange way to make money. Then suddenly one evening, Anil came home with some money and told Harry that he had just sold a book to a publisher. And before going to bed, Anil put the money under his mattress, and Harry saw him putting the money there. And Harry thought that he had been working for Anil for almost a month now, and he had not cheated him apart from the 1 rupee that he used to take out of daily purchases. The narrator also thinks that he had never had a chance. He had every chance to steal Anil, as he had given him the key to his room and he could come out and go whenever he wished to do so. And Harry had been trusted upon very much, and Harry had not been trusted upon by anyone else in his life. This was the only thing that was stopping Harry from stealing, as Harry thought that it was easy to rob a greedy man because he has the capability or the capacity or the money to get robbed, as he knows that he has lost some amount. But a careless man like Anil, there was no use to steal, as they sometimes don't even come to know that they had been robbed. And also, Harry feels that when someone does not come to know that he has been robbed, then there is no fun left in robbing him. Then Harry decided that he would start with some work, and he had not robbed anyone for a long time. And he also justified his act of stealing Anil's money by telling himself that if he didn't steal it, then what Anil will do? Anil would waste it on his friends. He also thought that he had a right over this money, and actually Harry is having a right over the money because Anil didn't even pay him for the work he used to do. Anil was asleep. A beam of moonlight stepped over the balcony and fell on the bed. I sat upon the floor considering the situation. If I took the money, I could catch the 10:30 express to Lucknow. Slipping out of the blanket, I crept up to the bed. Anil was sleeping peacefully. His face was clear and unlined. Even I had more marks on my face, though mine were all mostly scars. My hand slid under the mattress, searching for the knots. When I found them, I drew them out without a sound. Anil sighed in his sleep and turned on his side towards me. I was startled and quickly crawled out of the room. When I was on the road, I began to run. I had the knots at my waist held there by the string of my pyjamas. I slowed down to a walk and counted the knots. 600 rupees in 50s. I could live like an oil-rich Arab for a week or two. In this paragraph, we can see the real nature of Hari. Hari started his work, that is, he started robbing when Anil was sleeping. There was a little bit light over Anil's bed because of the moonlight that was coming in from the window. Harry sat on the floor and planned if he could took the money, he could leave the city by the 10:30 p.m. Lucknow express train. Harry then crawled towards the bed and slipped his hand slowly inside the bed mattress. He looked at Anil, who was sleeping peacefully without a single line on his face, and Harry's face had so many scars on it. He realized that although he was much younger than Anil, he had such a bad appearance due to his wrong thinking. On the other hand, Anil was carefree and thought good for others, because of which he had such a nice face. Harry then took out the knots without making any sound. Anil took a breath in his sleep and turned aside. He was directly facing Harry, when which made him a bit scared, and Harry quickly left the room. As soon as Harry left the room and was on the road, he started running and had kept the knots in his pyjamas. He had tied it with a string of pyjamas. Then after a while, Harry slowed down and counted the knots. He had 12 knots of 50 rupees each, which made it 600 rupees. Then Harry thought to himself that with this much money, he could live a luxurious life, a very luxurious life, like an Arab, for at least 2 weeks. When I reached the station, I did not stop at the ticket office. I had never bought a ticket in my life, but dashed straight to the platform. The Lucknow Express was just moving out. The train had still to pick up speed, and I should have been able to jump into one of the carriages. But I hesitated. For some reason I can't explain, and I lost the chance to get away. When the train had gone, I found myself standing alone on the deserted platform. I had no idea where to spend that night. I had no friends, believing that friends were more trouble than help. I did not want to make anyone curious by staying at one of the small hotels near the station. The only person I knew really well was the man I had robbed. Leaving the station, I walked slowly through the bazaar. In my short career as a thief, I had made a study of men's face when they had lost their goods. The greedy man showed fear, the rich man showed anger, the poor man showed acceptance. But I knew that Anil's face when he discovered the theft would show only a touch of sadness, not for the loss of money, but for the loss of trust. I found myself in the maiden and sat down on a bench. The night was chilly. It was early November. Soon it was raining quite heavily. My shirt and my pajamas stuck to my skin, and a cold wind blew the rain across my face. Here we can see another perception of Hari. Okay, so when Hari reached the station, the railway station, he straightaway went to the platform without buying a ticket, as he had never bought a ticket in his life. And he had always traveled without a ticket. And when he reached the platform, the Lucknow Express in which he had to go was just leaving the platform. The train was still slow, so he could easily jump and get into one of the carriages. But he did not do so. There was a bit of hesitation in him. Even he didn't understand why he had that hesitation inside him, and because of that, he could not board the train. After some time, when the train had left, Hari found himself all alone in the empty platform. And Hari did not know where he could spend the whole night. And he did not have any friends whom he could go, because he used to think that friends were more of a troublesome people than being helpful. And he did not even want to stay at any of the small hotels that would attract attention, because he is already a thief. And he knew only one person very well and had robbed the same person. He had robbed the person who he knew very well. As Harry was walking through the bazaar after leaving the station, he was thinking of these observations as a thief. In a short in a short period like a thief, he had realized that although everybody from rich to poor shows different reactions to losing their goods, but Anil would be a little sad. And that too would not be because he lost his money, but because he had lost trust that he had on Hari. And he would be sad that he trusted someone so much and the person had betrayed him. And Hari was walking when he reached a park. He sat on a bench. As it was the month of November, that night was a bit chilly. It was cold enough, and then a drizzle added to the discomfort that Hari was going through. It started raining quite heavily, and Hari's shirt and pajamas stuck to his body, and cold wind was blowing across Hari's face. I went back to the bazaar and sat down in the shelter of the clock tower. The clock shot midnight. I felt for the knots. They were damp from the rain. Anil's money. In the morning, he would probably had given me 2 or 3 rupees to go to the cinema, but now I had it all. I couldn't cook his meals, run to the bazaar, or learn to write whole sentences anymore. I had forgotten about them in the excitement of the theft. Whole sentences, I knew, could one day bring me more than a few 100 rupees. It was a simple matter to steal, and sometimes just as simple to be caught. But to be a really big man, a clever and respected man, was something else. I should go back to Anil, I told myself, if only to learn to read and write. I hurried back to the room feeling very nervous, for it is much easier to steal something than to return it undetected. I opened the door quietly, then stood in the doorway in clouded moonlight. Anil was still asleep. I crept to the head of the bed and my hand came up with the knots. I felt his breath on my hand. I remained still for a minute. Then my hand found the edge of the mattress and slipped under it with the knots. I awoke late next morning to find that Anil had already made the tea. He stretched out his hand towards me. There was a 50-rupee note between his fingers. My heart sank. I thought it had been discovered. I made some money yesterday, he explained. Now you will be paid regularly. My spirits rose. But when I took the note, I saw it was still wet from the night's rain. Today we will start writing sentences, he said. He knew, but neither his lips nor his eyes showed anything. I smiled at Anil in my most appealing way, and the smile came by itself without any effort. In this paragraph, we can see how the conscience of Hari has helped him not to commit any more wrong deeds. Here we can see Hari went back towards the bazaar and sat under the shelter of the clock tower to escape getting wet because it was drizzling. And it was 12 o'clock by the clock tower. And Hari checked the knots and they were wet. The knots were completely wet. Then again, Hari started thinking that it was Anil's money and if he could not have stolen it, Anil would have surely give him 2 to 3 rupees to go for a movie. But now as he had stolen it, he had it all. And now he won't be able to take tea or to do groceries for Anil anymore, nor would he able to learn to write whole sentences ever. And he had not realized that he would be losing all these in the excitement of stealing the money. And he knew that if he could learn to read and write, he could obviously earn much more money than this few hundred rupees, and that too very honestly. And he knew that it was very easy to steal something from someone, but sometimes it was that easy to get caught as well. And he knew that if he learned to read and write, he could surely become a big and a respected man one day. Then Hari told himself that he should go back. And if he wanted to learn to read and write also, he has to go back, and through that one day he will become a great man. And Hari went back to Anil's room and was very nervous because he knew that it was much difficult to return stolen things without being caught than actually stealing it. Hari went to the hallway and stood there as the moonlight was still falling over the bed. Anil was still asleep. Hari went near the head of the bed and took out the knots. As he was going near the mattress, his hands could feel Anil's breath on his hand. And Hari became still for a moment, found the edge of the mattress and finally slipped the knots under it. The next morning, Hari woke up a little late and Anil had already made a tea by that time. Anil extended his hands towards Hari and had a 50-rupee note in his hand. And Hari thought that he had been caught. Then suddenly Anil explained that he had made some money the day before, so he was giving him 50 rupees. And he also said that he would be paying Hari regularly. From now, I'll be paying you regularly. And Hari was really happy. But when he took the knot in his hand, he saw that it was still wet from last night drizzles. And he also told Hari that that day he would teach him how to write a complete sentence. And Hari realized that Anil had come to know that he had stolen money and kept it back. But the great thing that happened was that he did not let it show on his face or on his words. And Hari again smiled at Anil in his most appealing way, the most appealing way. And Anil's smile also came to his face without any effort. So this is all about the lesson, a very simple but a heart-touching lesson, a lesson that we have to keep in our mind. I hope you understood everything, and if you have any doubt, please do clarify at the earliest. Thank you for watching.